Hi, welcome. I'm so glad you tuned in. Today, I want to talk to you about a concept that I think it has a bunch of practical applications with our dogs. Contra freeloading. So what does contra freeloading means? The technical definition is animals wanting to work for their food versus getting the food for free. So we can see here on the right, this puppy being absolutely enthralled with the food that he's getting via play. So before we know how we can apply this concept in our life with our dogs, let's find out a little bit about who dogs are. Let's look at them from an ethological perspective, say. So our dogs are scavengers. A scavenger, by definition, is going to procure food that maybe it has not killed itself, something that they found, they're just going to have it. They're also opportunistic feeders. In other words, they're going to eat whatever they find or whatever they kill on the spot versus saving it for later. And finally, they're a predator. So predation is a very interesting concept. Let's find a little bit more about it. It's a sequence of behaviors to procure food. So it's not just one simple behavior, straightforward. There's a lot of little moving parts to it that we can take advantage of, these little moving parts of these behaviors in how we engage with our dogs. And I'll explain a little further. So let's look at these parts. First, we have the search. And of course, mainly they're using their nose in order to find the prey. The stalk, which is kind of that silky way of approaching, very sneaky. They don't want to be caught hunting, obviously. The rush, in the event that the prey starts moving away from them, they're going to rush towards them in order to catch them. The chase, again, if the prey is starting to move away, they're going to chase, speed up in order to get their prey. Then we have the bite, hold, shake, and kill. And finally, the dissect, so tearing apart the meat, basically, and then eat it or consume it. So how can we embrace contra freeloading in our day-to-day life? Well, this is what this presentation is about. What we want to do first is replace the food bowl when feeding our dog. That really does not provide our dog with a lot of opportunities to acting like a dog. They're just eating out of their food bowl. It takes a couple of seconds, done. Not a lot of fun, not a lot of stimulation. Instead, what we want to do we want to provide what we call legal outlets, basically things that we're comfortable with our dog doing, right? It's okay with us. And not only that, but it's something that is good for the dog. And on the left here, I have, again, those instances or behaviors that constitute the predatory sequence. Now, let's look how this could turn into something we do for our dogs. We want them to search for their food. We want them to chase their food. We want them to problem solve to eat and create opportunities to, quote unquote, hunt with us. So again, I'm going to go very specific here, giving you some ideas. So scatter feeding. Scatter feeding literally means that your dog is going to look for every piece of food. Ideally, you're feeding kibble or dry, freeze-dried. Obviously, it's a little harder to do this with raw food. It is possible. You can get very creative. So in essence, you're just going to throw the food out for your dog to go explore and find via the nose. Similarly to, again, the predatory behaviors that I was discussing earlier. We can use snuffle mats. So snuffle mats is kind of the inside way of doing this, and we have tons of choices. Here on the left is a very simple one. Dump the food in there and let your dog explore and pull all that food out. On the right here is one that is a little bit more sophisticated. And you can see that the dog, obviously it's a very short video, is very engaged with sniffling every piece of food. Another option, which I really like, is getting creative with anything, any item. that your dog can explore or find food that is safe for your dog. So let's watch this video. You see how engaged Stig is, just looking for the pieces of food that I throw in. Notice that he's going to get distracted. He hears a sound, and then he goes back immediately to the food. Puzzle toys, great for problem solving. So let's look at some options. What I call toys or animal parts, such as a trachea or a marrow bone that has been emptied out that you can fill in. I personally like to put in there sardines for my dogs, or maybe some cottage cheese with sardines, and then I freeze them, and they think I'm an amazing cook. They love it. Or you can get a toy that, again, has enough room in it so that you can put the whole amount of your dog's food. So you might need a couple of toys versus just one toy, which is great. It's more fun for the dog. And you can combine them. You can put either dry food. You can do a mix where you have the dry with the wet. Is that how you're feeding? Or even raw food can go into a lot of these toys. Other types of puzzle toys. On the left, again, a very simple, it's a tin can that has some food in there, and then you put the tennis balls on top, and the dog has to remove the balls in order to get to the food. I would say this is a very straightforward one. On the right, we have a more complex toy. And you do need to kind of check out to see which toy your dog prefers, and making sure that the dog can actually eat out of the toy. We want to stimulate the dog. We don't want to frustrate them because they can't get to the food. So if you present a toy that is just a little too hard for your dog, just stick with them. Think of it as if you were teaching somebody to play chess and they don't know how to play chess. So you're going to play a game teaching him the rules. It's kind of the same thing. You will initially teach your dog, depending on the toy, how to look for the food. And again, dogs are very different in their personalities, in their confidence level. Just experiment a little bit with your dog. The whole point is, don't get frustrated. Don't just say, well, this didn't work, or worse, my dog is lame, stupid, whatever, can't figure it out. Really, you just have to sometimes give them a minute, play with them, and then once they know how to use the toy, they can do it on their own. Provide relaxation and mental stimulation at the same time. So let's look at some of our options here. Leaky mats. I love leaky mats. They will replace the food bowl. Obviously, it has to be kind of a wet matrix. So yes, I guess you can combine the dry stuff in there. And you literally want your dog to be able to lick the food from this mat. And licking is very calming, is very relaxing for dogs, is a natural behavior. And as you can see, they're totally engaged. Again, it's important that you set up the toy in a way, especially if it's one of the ones with cavities, that is at the dog's level. If it's too hard and your dog can't get the food out and is just getting frustrating, that's not mental stimulation, that's frustration. Licky mats, I love for pretty much any age of dogs, especially your older dogs that might not be able to do so much as they did before, or that they rather eat while they're lying down, as is in this case. They're fantastic ways of providing some relaxation. How about using movements and different delivery of food? And now the important piece here is that we're interacting with our dogs as they're getting fed. So there's a couple of bonuses here. So this is what I call interacting hunting games, right? We are participating in the activity of our dogs eating. And depending on how we set it up, literally we're emulating part of that predatory sequence. Clearly, we're not hunting, our dogs are not hunting anymore, but it's the kind of the best thing we can do with our pets, frankly. So let's have a couple of options here. For example, you can throw the food for your dog. Again, this is dry food, freeze-dried. Yes, you can throw something that contains raw if that's how you're feeding. And then your dog is going to go and search it, run towards it. What makes it quite interesting is that it becomes very unpredictable. Your dog doesn't know where the food is going to land. And that is super exciting for dogs. Movement is a big part of predatory behavior. So here, again, the way we're feeding the dog is emulating some of the behaviors that they are engaging in naturally. Throwing food for your dog to catch, again, movement, unpredictability. You do have to be careful. Obviously, if you're feeding this way, you want to make sure that your dog sees the food first. You're holding it in your hand as you're going to toss. And I normally say catch and then throw the food. I make sure that the dog is looking at the food so that they can catch at the front of their mouth and not choke. Airplane. Trainers, we love this one because it provides mental stimulation and at the same time, it helps with impulse control. You have your dog standing, sitting, it doesn't really matter. You're holding a piece of food high and you're going to lower it very slowly to your dog's mouth. If your dog tries to jump up to get the food, you just bring it up again and set it up again. And depending on how well your dog is doing, they learn very quickly that if they stay still, they're going to get through the food faster. And again, provides great stimulation. You can do a meal that way, of course, and you can combine them. Training games in close proximity with us. So whenever we can do work with our dogs that involves us, that is a huge bonus. Many times people complain that their dogs kind of blow them off, that they get distracted away from them, that they can get their attention. And I would argue to those people that if they would spend more time engaging their dogs in fun, whatever that means to you and to your dog, you're going to get a dog that is more willing to search you because you're fun. So combine now feeding with games. And there's gazillion things one can do to teach their dogs. Some of them could be a little complex. Some of them don't have to be complex in order for us to spend this quality time with our dogs and making ourselves interesting to our dogs. Fitness. I do a ton of fitness as part of my business. I do it with my dogs regularly. And this is how they get a lot of their food. Basically, when we're doing fitness, this is how they're going to get their chow for that day. Hide and seek. Think about it. We can do, again, an interactive thing where we can hide the food for the dog. Again, depending on the level of intricacy. Some dogs are very keen, will immediately spot the food. Some others, we have to start very slow, maybe making sure that they can see where we're putting the food. So you just have to be patient, experiment a little bit, but keep at it. Your dog will get better. And then you could just ask your dog to wait somewhere, maybe put it in another room. When you're ready, find it. And the idea here, you're going to go with your dog to get the food. So it's different from the scattered feeding that you're just tossing and your dog is going at it. This is something where, again, you're kind of hunting together. You are participating in this activity. Food delivery using training aids. There's so many of these training aids, and I would argue that they're actually quite wonderful to really take a deep dive and look at the different options. I have used them, for example, when I'm doing cavalettes with dogs, and I can set them up in different places for the dog to get fed without me having to go there necessarily. If you're having a dog that has issues staying away from you because they get a little nervous, they want to be next to you, I have used them successfully, teaching dogs to stay in one place as the owner is moving around, giving the experience that being on their own is actually good for them because they're getting fed that way. So again, the sky is the limit on this. So I suggest you explore the many options. Now, what happens if you have more than one dog? Does it mean that you can't do these games? And I would say absolutely not. You can totally do these games. Yes, you need to be cautious. You need to set it up in a way that is not going to get your dogs into trouble. So let's look at how that would look. First, you want to have a plan. Know which one of your dogs is going to be doing which activity for that particular meal. And where is that activity going to take place? So maybe it's going to be one of the dogs is going to be in the backyard and the other one is going to be inside in another room, and one is doing scattered feeding and the one inside is doing a dog with a cavity. And the next day you can swap around. You can rotate dogs, you can rotate activities. If it becomes a little bit overwhelming for you, just start with one dog and get that dog going, get a little confident with your own program, and then you start incorporating your second, third, however many dogs you have in the different activities. And you will find that before long, you will have a program that is running so smoothly and you're getting so much benefit from it, and your dogs are as well. It's important, even though a lot of these ideas are absolutely safe, or I would say all of them are very safe, that you do take responsibility to making sure that what you're doing works for your household, it works for your dogs, that you are being mindful when you're giving your dog a new chew or a new toy, that you know exactly how they're going to interact with that, because they are different. So I hope that you found these ideas clever. I hope that you will give them a go. Let me know how it goes for you. And thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.